All right, American History X. I think that two edgy teenagers who watched American History X, this movie that shows a white supremacist and a clan of neo-Nazis, even though it is blatantly anti-white supremacy and white power, the movie is depicting these people as bad.
It lingers for a very long time in that space of watching them just revel in their awfulness and in their beliefs, that yet it's like you're saying about war, you can be anti-war, but making a movie about it is, what did you say?
Well, that just showing it
right
makes it
because you don't have any control over who's going to watch it. There's going to be people who watch it and they're like, yeah, that guy's singing a song that sounds good, and it's supposed to be showing you the disgustingness of that person in that culture.
Similarly, a war movie that's supposed to show you how horrific war is,
right,
just also makes it seem so glorious and cool.
Right, what a story.
And you know that there are people who love American History X who were like, I don't like it when like halfway through the movie it kind of turns, but the first half fucking rules. Or, like the president of the United States a few days ago retweeted a video where a man yells white power, and then like 3 hours later the president takes it down, and then says like, oh, I didn't realize
I was on the can.
People who love white power can be like, yeah, you had to say that.
Yeah, but it already happened. Right, exactly. And they do. I mean, at least in the couple of books that we've read about it, they absolutely do take his every little action like that to not be a mistake at all. Just to be
where you're like, listen, I know what to look for. I know what part's the real part and the sincere part, and which part's
QAnon of them. I'm reading you. I gotcha.
QAnon. It's funny. QAnon. Like I was thinking about QAnon during this movie because the movie is about a neo-Nazi basically getting deprogrammed from neo-Nazism.
Mm-hmm.
So it came out in 1998. It was directed by a man named Tony Kaye, a British director of commercials and music videos, and he did not like the movie as it was the final cut of the movie. He demanded that his name be removed from directorial credit, and when it wasn't, he then purchased $100,000 worth of ads.
Of context? Context ads.
Of context, yes. Listen, you gotta understand. Declaiming ownership of it. But it was a moderate hit and a big critical success. Edward Norton got an Oscar nomination for it. And it looks like Edward Norton actually was sort of the real auteur in the end because he got final cut of the movie. And the director didn't like how much sort of like Hollywood stuff was added in.
Like what?
He complained about how many scenes there are of the family like hugging and being a nice family. I wanted to really find out what was your vision?
Right. Where did it go wrong for you? The ending?
Because this does have a terrible ending.
It's the worst.
Do you want to like talk about your history with this movie? Your History X with American History X?
So this definitely wouldn't have been, this is a bit of an off, it wouldn't be a legit beam. It would just have been a movie that I watched once or twice that was like so powerful and visceral and disturbing, but like in a way where I couldn't look away. And then like it had these redeeming qualities. I was like, I'm not bad, they're not bad, we're all okay.
Yeah.
But the ending would have made it to where I definitely wouldn't have watched it again, not for years. It just was like in the atmosphere. Like there was a certain kind of person that I might have been drawn to, actually, the way that they dressed, a punk rock kind of a person, as someone who was bad on purpose, but not too bad. That would, bring this movie up or mention curb stomping, which is the worst possible part of this.
Anyway, the only thing I knew about this movie was it had a curb stomp in it.
And I guess they invented that. I have no idea. I have no idea. It's atrocious.
Can't stop thinking about it.
I'll never bite concrete for that reason.
Well, I'm horrified by anything with mouth because I can't open my mouth very wide because I have TMJ. Mm-hmm. So I'm just thinking somebody held a gun to my head and said, like, put a gag ball in your mouth. I'd be like, I can't.
Or the gun in your mouth, like, turn it sideways.
Right, yeah.
Give me just a bullet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
My worst
Anyway, so it wouldn't have been something where I like watched it over and over again and then started dressing the part and then would like quote it. There's no quotes in this movie. I mean, as we were watching it, I wasn't like, oh wait, he's going to say this thing. It's not like that.
No, it's a different kind of movie that you
so
held in high esteem.
I guess not high esteem. It just was made a big impression on me, and it made me love Edward Norton and Edward Furlong. So, I mean, they were very attractive looking to me.
Oh.
I liked the way it kind of made my type of guy for the rest of high school. I do not mean in their beliefs. I mean like the goatee and the not
hair?
the shaved head, the later look, the dark brunette hair, and the always with his shirt off, preferably not with the swastika tattoo, but just a certain way they each carried themselves. It's like, oh, younger version, older version, younger version. I like both.
Have you seen Terminator 2?
No, is Edward Furlong in that?
Yeah, that's the only thing he's like. 90% of what Edward Furlong is known for is that, and then the other 9% is this, and then 1% is like his troubles.
Does he have troubles?
Sure, child star. But yeah, I mean, he was the live action Bart Simpson basically in 1991.
For one movie.
It was the biggest movie.
Still just one movie
of that era.
I think. I mean, I'm sure I've seen it. I've just no impression. I can see his face.
What's weird, I know that when they filmed that movie, when they filmed Terminator 2. His voice changed, so all of his dialogue is done in post. It's ADR, and so his voice in Terminator 2 from 1991 sounds identical to his voice in American History X 7 years later. They really do sound exactly the same. But you know, he's like talking to Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's like, "You got to say cool stuff like hasta la vista, baby."
He suggested that?
That's where it comes from, yes. And Arnold, in an attempt to like relate to the boy, says hasta la vista, baby.
Oh, I really should watch things.
It's pretty great.
Okay.
But you loved him. Loved Furlong.
No good reason, except for there was a boy named Brandon in my class that looked so similar to him. It made a movie star seem obtainable. Like, I could just get that guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't like anything or anyone, but maybe me.
Ooh.
This whole idea of take the person in the worst mood out of the room, get that guy on my side.
Yeah. Brandon will be on the podcast later, but
I don't even remember his last name. It might not even been Brandon.
Oh, well,
Brandon.
Mm-hmm. I had never, like I said, the only thing I knew about the movie was the curb stomp. I sort of associated it with, I don't know, like people who like Natural Born Killers or people who liked sort of your grittier neo-Tarantino.
Not Romeo and Juliet, but the one with Christian Slater where it's like that.
True Romance. Movie we've covered on this podcast.
Yeah, like that's all, you know, it would be, if you like this, you would like
I felt like it was in Boondock Saints, like it was all part of a continuum.
See, you're naming all of mine, so it's like I just kind of had to end up watching this one. It wouldn't have been something I watched on my own. Mm-hmm. I would have watched it with a cooler person and would have just had been like, okay.
Yeah.
Woo!
Well, okay.
But it's got that road. Anyway.
I guess we can talk about, we sort of walk through it. It's.
But we? Should we explain what the movie's about?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Walk through what.
We did that. We didn't do it at all.
I don't know what we did. Welcome to Load Bearing Beans. My name is Matt. The movie opens with it switches back and forth between this black and white sequences with the most melodramatic music.
God, the score.
And then in the present tense, it's in color. The music is a little more
subdued,
realistic, subdued. And opens with Edward Norton just gleefully killing some black men who are attempting to rob his car. And then because of that, he goes to prison.
And a violent sex scene. I mean, not violent. It's aggressive. It's the first time you're meeting these two characters, the three of them.
Yeah.
It's like, that's.
And you're like, I'm turned on, but I feel wrong about it.
No.
Just me.
Always nervous.
Well, yeah, because he has a giant swastika tattue on his chest and Nazi iconography everywhere.
And above his bed, it's like, oh, this is evil fucking.
Mm-hmm. But like, isn't that the... Never mind. This is what causes him to go to prison. He loves Hitler and loves the white race and hates the Zionist-occupied government and everything. He was
radicalized because there was a news clip of him and he looks awesomely stupid and with his long hair, and he's like a 30, 40-year-old man.
Yeah.
Where his dad, who is a fireman, is shot because he's in a bad neighborhood. And so then he starts just spouting all these his theories for why this happened. And I think that's what made him a target of this white power guy that had moved into Venice Beach.
Uh-huh.
And that's how he took him under his wing, Cameron. And Derek was such a powerful
recruiter
believer in it. Yeah, that he
Uh-huh.
recruited. Basically, together they built this entire white gang.
Yeah, which was and continues to be a thing, but like
Really? There?
in Venice Beach, apparently, yeah.
Oh.
And so the writer of the movie, Chris McKenna, wrote about his own experiences growing up in this area, his experiences in the punk rock scene. I'm somebody who, like, at a certain point in my life would have earnestly said punk rock saved my life. The most obnoxious thing anyone can say.
Yes.
When you read about the history of punk rock, you see how sort of weirdly thin the line is between punk and fascism. It's weird, and yet it makes a certain amount of sense. I mean, not just because like the Sex Pistols have a anti-abortion song, but because it was very cool in the 70s and 80s for British teens to have swastikas and Nazi iconography because it would really piss off their parents who fought in the war.
Right.
But transgression just sort of inherently,
because you know how many people have those ISIS flags because their parents are over there, and it's like that's fucking weird.
Well,
I mean, it's just very hardcore.
I mean, a lot of like modern day alt-right memes always have that sort of winking, like, I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to upset you. I'm saying racist and anti-Semitic and anti-Islamic things to get a rise out of you.
And that's interesting because that's kind of exactly our point with this movie and why it might have rubbed us a little bit the wrong way, in that you're still putting it out there.
It's very uncomfortable for that reason.
There's no context.
I think you said, like, and I'm just imagining the actor saying this thing on set.
Fairuza Balk,
over and over again.
Super scary. Saying the N-word just so, like, she looks so satisfied when
she ever not played a role like this?
I don't know. She's upsetting to me. She's always looked so craven.
So craven?
Just delightfully. And look at all the chaos. Her eyes are so big. And
the only thing better is if we had some candles.
She's got them in her pussy.
And if we had Manon.
Manon. I can feel you, Manon.
But yeah, you can imagine the actors having to say all these things on set over and over and over again.
Right. Like, were there not black people that were also working on the set? I mean, let alone the black actors. I don't know.
The point is that everybody's looking for community, especially people who are troubled or who have trauma in their backgrounds, might gravitate towards something like this. But the act of showing how, like, attractive it is to them, there is something very off-putting. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be allowed to make films about it.
Right.
If it got made today, like, I think it would be protested. People would be like, now is not the time to be, sympathetic to a white supremacist, or to say, like, let's finally try to understand why people get attracted to white power.
Right. It seems like they would have had to show more of Cam's role, and I'm calling him by his nickname, Cameron, who is the true
villain.
Absolutely, because I mean he's preying on vulnerable, impressionable, young, white, poor kids. People. I mean he's got the power, and he gets them to do his bidding. They have that scene where they terrorize a Hispanic-owned grocery store, and he's like, well, I'd stay, but I can't. And then Derek's like, I know. Like, Papa, it's so nice that you put all of your kids over here where we could definitely get shot and killed, but you're really watching your back. Way to go, man.
There seems to be like a subplot that never actually gets explored, where he, like in BlacKkKlansman, David Duke, when Topher Grace plays him and he's playing him as like we're not the same old Klan. Now we wear suits, and we're going to be politicians, and we're going to be respectable, and we're going to enter mainstream society.
Oh, he's David Duke. You just said that.
Yeah.
So he's supposed to be David Duke.
I thought that might have been sort of where it was going. With him anyway, he's like, listen, all the violence and shit. No, we don't do. You guys can do that. I'm gonna go be I'm gonna make white power respectable.
Okay, no, that's not how I took that
No?
at all. Because whenever he's like really mad, okay, so spoiler alert, Derek goes to prison and he comes and he learns a lot and he completely changes his mind about all of that and how bullshit the whole white power illusion is. So he comes back and he wants to get out of the gang, and they have that interaction where he says, you know, this is all for the Cameron. It's like, this is all for the greater good and blah, blah, blah. And who cares if a couple of N-words need to die? And or like he vouches for the violence right there. The only reason he's leaving in that parking lot scene before the grocery store is because he's a coward who does not do his own bidding. Not because he's above it, because he's a wiener.
Oh, see, yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
He's
you kids and your violence. No, he drove Derek to the store so he could go do some violence.
Mm-hmm.
He was even like, I wish I could be there to see it. That's why he has freaking Daryl. That's why he has Danny video it.
Yeah. David, speaking of David Duke, David Duke still lives in the town where I grew up, Mandeville, Louisiana. I mean, he
does?
At least he did when I was in high school. I'm pretty sure he still does, but I mean, I just growing up remember hearing people saying like, David Duke was in the grocery store. Oh, dude, that's fucked up.
Buying things. Gross.
And my English teacher said she went to Franco's, the big athletic club in Mandeville, and David Duke was there and he hit on her.
Ew.
He's like, hey, I'm David Duke. How you doing, man?
Maybe don't start with that. Maybe that shouldn't be your opener, David Duke.
No, it's good. It's the
no, I know. It's the
what do you call it?
Lemons test.
It's a test. Like, well, I'm not going to get anybody who doesn't respond to that. Yes,
right,
it's fishing.
The fishing, right?
He's gonna have to say that to lots and lots of women, but if 0.0001% of women
you only need one.
Yeah, you only need one. There is an amazing podcast, Slow Burn, that is doing a season on David Duke and his political rise. And what I learned and found delightful was that when you know about David Duke, what you always hear is like he was the grand wizard of the KKK.
Grand wizard, right.
People always say that, and they know those words.
Sorcery.
And when you hear that, you're like, oh my God,
that
wow.
sounds extra evil.
And what I didn't know until I listened to the podcast was that he made up those two words and that
he made up putting them together and having them stand for something.
Sure. But it's like he made up that position and the group he was in charge of is one that he started. Because the Ku Klux Klan is not a centralized organization that has like chapters everywhere and has like a long lineage. It's just, you can just start your group and like, we're the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan and I'm the president. And it's not that he wasn't a super racist
he earned
person.
it.
It's just,
boy, was he bad.
He just made up his own title. Anyway, I like that. Everybody should listen to that.
Let's be clear. You like that it's so bullshit. It's like something that seems like it should have been something that gave him honor in his sick group, but even that was window dressing.
Right. That he that he was full of shit even there.
Yes.
What gets Derek, one thing that makes Derek, well, really the catalyst for him falling out of the Aryan Brotherhood that he's hanging out with in prison is that he realizes that they're like not pure of heart.
They don't mean it.
They're willing to fraternize with other ethnicities, like Hispanic people, because they're willing to deal drugs with them or whatever. And he's like, wait a minute, you're not totally sincerely 100% about the cause, maybe. And that sort of gets the gears grinding for him of maybe he should rethink whether he buys into this ideology. It's weird, but I've read lots of deprogramming stories that sort of begin that way.
Well, and I find it analogous to people who find themselves deconverting out of religion. It's often people who were in the most committed, most zealous sects that can become disenchanted easier because what they thought was real and true is so black and white. There's no gray area. A sin is a sin, and you go to hell for this, and you get to heaven by doing that. And so it's easier to lift the curtain and show hypocrisy or whatever for people like that, because it takes down the whole house of cards for the, okay, well, if this is proven to be untrue, how can I believe in any of the other stuff? It's their hardcore nature that makes them easier to convert.
So you've said that to me before, and I didn't understand until you just said it. That's so interesting. So you would think that it'd be easier to persuade somebody who's like kind of in the middle, but it's actually harder because somebody in the middle can just assimilate.
They're the purple states.
Inconsistencies and just say like, oh, whatever.
Exactly. They're
Whereas
squishy.
A true believer is like, you knock down one thing and they're like, oh, fuck.
Because think of something that's brittle. You just chip away one part, that shit falls apart. Something that's squishy and pliable, you could just take things out of that Jenga thing all day and it's still, woo, I still got this stuff. It's the purple state of people.
The purple state of people.
Red and blue. There you know where you stand.
With one horn.
One horn. One horn. One horn.
And then the other thing that gets him to deconvert is that he makes a friend with a black man in prison.
Which you're worried about right away. You're like, oh, Green Book.
It kind of is Green Book.
It is. I feel like they are not too heavy-handed. It's not so heavy-handed that you can't enjoy those parts.
It is not so heavy-handed because
they are some of the most enjoyable parts.
What's the actor who plays? I don't even know the character's name.
I don't either.
His
Lamont?
work partner.
Is that his name?
But he gives he's very funny, and Edward Norton is very good in those scenes. And Edward Norton is terrific throughout this movie. And Edward Norton's a fucking great actor.
He buys the fuck in.
And
that Sharpie tattoo, though, God, is that a dark black swastika? And you can like see the streaks in it from when they redraw it every day.
I didn't see it, but
the fake tattoos really bug me in movies.
It's one of the things. Yeah, it's a thing you notice that but yeah, I was thinking like, is this just Green Book where it's like this guy's racist, but then he becomes friends with a black person and that makes him realize I was stupid. I'm not racist anymore.
It's like, no, don't worry. We're going to really cement this transformation with a good old-fashioned buttfuck. Like, there's going to be a rape scene.
Explain that.
Okay. So, I don't know why. Okay, so because Edward Norton's character is becoming disgusted with the inconsistencies in the Aryan Brotherhood that's in the prison now, they're willing to fraternize and to make exceptions when it's financially beneficial. So he's like, well, you guys are not true believers. So like, in order to show them that, he challenges them in front of other people, in front of, he embarrasses them basically. And so to put Edward back in his place, they gangbang. Well, they don't gangbang him, but they all pin him down in the shower, and the biggest one rapes him.
Yeah.
And like and then smashes his head into the wall. So whenever he falls down, you're like, oh, blood. Is that from his head? It's from his ass. I mean, and then they don't bother explaining, except for whenever they're escorting his visitor into the hospital area, 6 stitches. You're like, okay, but in the head, or God, that is, I mean, they really lean into the damage done.
They really do. Oh. And, one could,
they just keep talking about
it. One could complain about that. One could say the movie might be reveling in this.
That's what
especially for sufferers of actual trauma in their lives. Say, maybe don't go this hardcore.
Right, with him like walking gingerly and then sitting down gingerly and then like that group of people laughing about it. It's like, you could have had that illusion of that happening without all the fanfare afterward. And that's my complaint about the whole movie. Certain things were important for the storyline, but it seemed like they just really enjoyed themselves in making both sides of the story too much.
Mm-hmm.
To where it makes you feel dirty to watch it.
Yeah.
Or at least I did.
I did too. But then when he's in the prison hospital, that's when Dr. Sweeney, the character played by Avery Brooks, comes in. He's the principal of the high school where Edward Furlong is currently attending, and he was a teacher when Edward Norton was a student. He is a black man, and he cares about Edward Norton and Edward Furlong, and thinks that Edward Furlong it's not too late for him.
Right.
And so he wants to get Derek's cooperation and helping reach out to his brother.
So he doesn't go the route.
Gives him some books to read. This is one component of his this is, I guess, the third leg of his deconversion from white supremacy is this relationship and reading the books that he's
Right. And it's his
given.
lifeline once he gets released after 3 years, after killing 2 black men. It was insane. So he comes waltzing out after 3 years, and it's the person on the outside that can keep supporting him and staying true to his commitment about getting out of that gang and helping his brother and his whole family to get out of there. And the ending of this movie.
Well, we can get to that, but I wanted to mention that he's the one, Dr. Sweeney is the one who gives the movie its title, American History X, because early in the movie, Edward Furlong goes into the office, the principal's office, and the principal's like, why did you write a paper called My Mein Kampf? And he's like, fucking Nazis are awesome, and I love Hitler, and whatever, I can do what I want, it's a free country. And the principal says, like, okay, I'm going to have private history lessons with you every day. We're going to meet in my office and I'm going to give you American history X. I thought that was going to be a thread that would recur throughout the movie.
I forgot this whole movie. It was around 1 day, 1.5 days of activities. The framing,
the present tense narrative only takes place over a day or so.
And I'm telling you, there were whole parts of this story. I think, if I had to guess, they really inflated all of the DOC parts, the part that which is the name of their white power gang. Mm-hmm. Like they spend a lot more time there than maybe was first intended, because there's all these B plots that I don't understand where the hell they're going. For instance, Dr. Sweeney is also the member of some kind of racism task force for the police.
He's like an advisor.
Sure. But the first thing he does is the second day that Derek's out of a 3-year prison sentence is tries to get him for a sting operation. And that happens at or he's just trying to he's trying to get Derek after Derek's already made a big old thing about leaving the gang. He then finds him at a breakfast place and says, we need you to infiltrate, or what?
It's happening way too fast. The most unbelievable part is that the cops would care about white terrorists.
Right.
I mean, but the 90s were different. I mean, in 1998, the biggest example of terrorism in America was Timothy McVeigh from a few years earlier, who was himself a white supremacist. Right.
When we called white people terrorists.
White power terrorism was the dominant form of terrorism. Still is today, by the way. But when the Department of Justice wants to release its memo on advising people about the dangers of white terrorism, Jeff Sessions is like, no, let's scuttle this.
I like it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I really thought that would be Edward Furlong learns no, black people have had it really badly and maybe don't be horrible to them. That doesn't happen.
Wait, what?
I thought that was going to be a recurring thread of the movie, is that he actually gets his American History X lessons. He gets to learns about Malcolm X or W.B. Du Bois.
In fact, his only assignment is to write the paper about his brother, which gets the job done. It converts him in 1 day. But the ending scene, you can say it or not say what happens, but it's him throwing it up in the air and it crashing down on the boys' room floor, bloody and wet. So
the paper.
The paper.
Yeah, because he gets...
it never even mattered.
He gets shot by a black kid who earlier he had a confrontation with.
The day before.
And this came out before Columbine. It could never have come out afterward, but it is fucking grotesque the way the blood just splatters onto the kid's face.
Yeah.
Just close-up profile shot of the guy who shot him. What the fuck is the point of...
I don't know. Because he's a new man. He's got all he really wanted was his brother. He had already lost his dad, Danny, and he just wanted his brother to think he was cool. He was horrified by how his brother used to act. He wasn't a part of the gang, but in his brother's absence, he does all the things that he thinks are going to make his brother happy. And in 1 day, he unlearns all of it. It comes, because that's not ever what he wanted anyway. And because he was acting like a fucking dick the day before he was deconverted, he pays for it with one more.
But he's also, I guess he sees that guy on the basketball court right at the park, and he makes a menacing gesture at him.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. He's paying for it.
I forgot about that part.
Well, yeah.
I guess it's
he had already made his bed. And you think there's going to be a drive-by because the kid that ends up shooting him drives by with his older cousin or friend or whatever, and they mime pulling a gun, and you're like, oh, thank God. Whew, dodged a bullet. Okay, now, because what I thought the closing scene was going to be, and I guess it's very Pollyanna of me, is him in some way smoothing things over with that kid, because it was so tense, and neither of them really seemed like they wanted to do anything about it. It was just like they were both putting on these fronts that they felt like were going to protect them in this world. And I just was like, okay, why is this movie still on? What could possibly be the 4th chapter of this fucking, why is it not over? And then, oh, okay, because he needs to die now.
You could say all of that. It doesn't feel like a fitting end to the story you just watched. I get that violence begets more violence.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying one could say that, but I don't feel like it's a fitting ending. I do like the scene. Apparently, Tony Kaye, the director, didn't want the scene where the family is having a dinner and they talk to the dad, the fireman dad who gets killed.
It's our favorite part.
He didn't want that included, but it is you see that the father, who's been venerated the whole movie, has a little racist monologue, but the kind of racist monologue that, like, you could be that like,
you probably heard from your own dad if you lived here where David Duke was elected into office.
Right. Or you might hear from somebody your own age right now. It's the
not, but yeah.
Listen, I'm not racist. I'm just saying.
All right, yeah.
You know.
Why shouldn't we get some breaks?
So you see that this thing sort of all comes from the family.
Right. It didn't just develop because someone had a tragedy in their life. The seeds were planted long before.
It's not just because you need community and you'll find it wherever you can.
It's nature and it's nurture. It's not right. It's not just like all white people have this lying below the surface and we're just waiting on a family member to die so we can go on to that. But it doesn't need a lot of water and sunlight to make it grow, and that's what's dangerous about it. That's why you should care about what you say to your children and like think about what you say as a person, because you never know when you're helping radicalize someone. And it's like you can, it's tea leaves, right? Like if you've already got it in you, you can read lots of stuff however you need to make it fit, and use anything as an excuse to send you over the edge.
Ugh.
You're welcome.
What did you do you like this movie? Watching it now? Did you like it?
I wouldn't watch it again. I was not mad that we were watching it. I was nervous the whole time because I was like, I know this movie vindicates itself. When is that going to happen?
Yeah.
And it just I felt like a voyeur. Like I didn't remember it being so gluttonous in all the depravity that it wanted to show, and in how poorly it showed Black people. Like they don't really ever get a break in how they're portrayed in the movie either, except for his friend in prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess, and but and Professor Sweeney, but he's not very relatable.
No, you never show Edward Norton grappling with the murders he committed. Right. Whether he actually feels bad about that.
He killed 2 men.
And gruesomely killed them, and totally unnecessarily.
Right.
They were robbing him, but then they started running away when he came out with a gun.
Right, unarmed. And he chased the driver down the street to maim him. He lived, but...
Yeah. I mean, should I mention that we were at a party in 2013 when the verdict for the George Zimmerman trial was announced?
Oh my God.
And at this party we were at, people cheered that he had been exonerated. And
we were at like a really old school white restaurant that, has its own history because it's old boys club, basically, where Black people wouldn't have been able to come and eat. And all of the waiters there were Black.
Yeah.
And they're clapping in front of them.
Yep.
Did we leave? I know we went outside after that, but like it was not a good moment.
I was trying very hard not to get in arguments with my family members.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the MO, and I don't know what to do about that.
Right. You're not going to be able to stand up and talk to the whole room. Or
to any individual. I truly don't know what you should do about that.
I'm always... There's responsibility there, and it seems like not doing anything is definitely evil.
But I've always thought I can influence people more if I'm more subtle about it.
I know.
If I'm not just like yelling, "You're wrong" and racist.
Well, right, but it's the middle ground that I don't know that I'm doing well.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm I spend so much time not rocking the boat because there's a lot of things about me that my family doesn't love. It's like, oh, so I'll also do this one now. I'll also be the social justice warrior and on this topic as well. And it's like,
I know.
pick a lane, Lacey.
I know. And it must be exhausting for them that every single news story you're like, well, actually, what you think is totally wrong. Haha, bet you didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
From a filmmaking perspective, all that disclosure. Yeah. From a filmmaking perspective, I wish that they'd only had the black and white portions. I didn't need Edward Furlong at all. I don't need the wraparound device. I kind of eventually was won over by the over-the-top music in the black and white segments because it sort of reminded me of movies from the 50s, movies like The Setup, The Harder They Fall. And
I'm nodding my head, but I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
It just seems so over the top that I could almost see this movie having been made in the 50s.
It's literally
except for the things it's showing.
It's literally because you have a symphony in the theater. So you got to give them something to do.
Right. What else is the piano player going to do? And Edward Norton's very good. I ultimately didn't like enough stuff about it that I don't know. I never want to watch it again. I also don't know if it's a good movie. It's on the cusp. It's interesting. I'm glad it exists. And if it came out today, people would say we don't need another movie about trying to understand the bad white people. Right. And I get that. And I get that there's only so much space for movies and for studios to put their resources and all that. So it's like, would that be better spent telling the story of a person of color? Yes. But I don't not want things like this to exist also.
They already do.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
There you go.
That's how relics work.
This was a fun episode, wasn't it?
Yes. Wow. So I was like, oh, this is a timely movie. What a good idea.
So weird.
Bummer.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
But I don't know. Next week we'll talk about
what? It's your turn.
Power Rangers. I don't know. Load Bearing Pod on Twitter is where you can find us. Load Bearing Beams on Facebook. Load Bearing Beams on Instagram.
YouTube. Also.
Load Bearing Beams on YouTube.
Okay.
We're grateful that you listened. We love you. Please subscribe and rate and review.
Smash that button. All of them.
Subscribe and like. You got to do both.
Okay, I love you. Bye.